It's week 19, and this one is an interesting one. We're building the Jungle Bird, and whereas the first week of Rum Month, we built our sour template with the daiquiri. Last week with the mojito, we added some texture and fragility of the mint leaves and carbonation, built it in a highball. This week, we are introducing pineapple juice and bitter. If you remember from Gin Month, we used Campari for the Negroni, where we paired Campari with sweet vermouth and gin. Jungle Bird is introducing pineapple, which now really teeters us very close to tiki. Don't worry, we're gonna have a whole month dedicated to tiki. But what's interesting is Campari has no right to be here in our pineapple, coconutty rum environment. The bitterness seems avant-garde almost, and I think it's a very special drink where these two families kind of merge. Whoosh. The history of this drink is actually our most modern of this year, I believe. It only goes back to 1973 in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, in the Hilton Hotel. Jeffrey Ong, the manager of the bar there, came up with this drink as a serving to guests arriving to the hotel, which I think is an interesting take because you have your sweet lime rum vibe, but also the bitterness that gives it a bit of interest, a bit of maturity. Speaking of maturity, what is going on in this drink? Well, the first difference from the previous 2 weeks is our base rum is now dark, not white. And the dark rum will introduce a bit more character from being aged. This is all I could find on hand locally, but you would do well with a Jamaican dark rum. Gives it a little bit more spice and flavor because again, we have to hold up to this crazy bitterness that's coming in soon. The pineapple juice, ideally fresh, but if you can't do that, a good pineapple juice in a can is also fine. The pineapple juice is introducing more than just sweet and citrus interest. Oh, that would be a good band name. It's also creating texture and structure because when you shake it, it creates foam and viscosity and makes the drink a lot thicker and more interesting than something that doesn't have pineapple juice. I don't know where I was going with that. Lime juice, as we discussed, blah blah blue every single week, you know what it does, but interestingly, the sweet is a Demerara. Again, 1-to-1 simple syrup is just Demerara instead of white, and the Demerara is much darker, creamier, richer. It's actually quite different, and that pairs well with the dark rum. One could even be pretentious enough to say the caramel notes of the barrel of the dark age will pair with the nuttiness, caramelly of the dark. Maybe. There's a three-way balance happening here. The rum and the pineapple are kind of pushing tropical. The Campari is pushing bitterness and floral, and then it's up to the lime and the sugar, the simple syrup, to balance out the whole mix. And like always, it's fascinating that all of these come together to make a delicious, refreshing drink. Whoosh. Let's build. But first, I just want to say the canonical build for the Campari ratio is 3/4 of an ounce. But if you are bitter sensitive like I am, you could scale that back to a 1/2 ounce until you mature and realize, oh, I understand what it's bringing to the table. Again, as with everything, we're at-home bartenders. We can always tweak according to our own preference. Okay, we're gonna build this in a rocks glass. We're gonna put a big ol' ice cube in our rocks glass, and this is a shaken drink. So we're gonna start with 1.5 ounce of dark rum, 3/4 ounce of Campari. Again, you can pare that down if you're sensitive. 1.5 ounces of fresh pineapple juice, 1/2 ounce of fresh lime juice, and 1/2 ounce of Demerara simple syrup, or if you don't have Demerara, then I suppose regular simple syrup will do, but Demerara does, it really does have a very different feel and taste. Add ice to your shaker. When you have pineapple juice in the mix, you do want to shake a little bit more, really get that incorporated frothiness going. Okay, we're gonna double strain into our rocks glass, and you could also use crushed or pebble ice if you'd like. That will melt quicker, but give it a different, interesting texture. Garnish is a pineapple wedge and or pineapple fronds. And that, my friends, is the Jungle Bird, which I've never had before, and I'm very intrigued. So let's have a little sipsy soo. I'm not gonna say that ever again, don't worry. Wow, wow, wow. Let me just say, okay, you do taste the bitterness a bit more on the back end. I don't know if I would say I'm bitter sensitive, but you don't need to scale back to Campari. It is just a perfect mix. It does mature the drink a bit. I do understand why Jeffrey Ong created this for his guests coming into the hotel. It's not a one-dimensional drink. You taste it and you think you're drinking tiki, but the Campari comes on the back end and it's just a very interesting mix. You can really play with the base rum. If you go with a more spiced rum or more aged Jamaican type of rum, it definitely plays well with the Campari because you already have that kind of spicy note that's popping out. All in all, I think this is an excellent graduation from the last 2 weeks. We are much more complex. We are in proper rum, almost tiki territory, but this is definitely a detour from Tiki Land, and highly recommend this drink. Do I say that every week? Have I ever not recommended a drink? You can gauge how much I like it based on how many times I come back to sip it. That is so good. All right, let's see what the internet keyboard warriors have to say about variations. Okay, so like I said, the most common riff is adjusting the rum style. A blackstrap rum will add a bit more of a rich molasses type of taste. A split base of Jamaican rum and Demerara rum. Didn't know that was a thing. An aged rum with barrel character adds more vanilla spice, that barrel type of flavor. And again, it's interesting to kind of see how those variations jive with the Campari component. You could also adjust the Demerara syrup with a honey syrup. You could increase the pineapple juice and pull back the Campari, which I think would make this a much tastier, easier drink, but I don't think that's what the drink is. I think there's enough pineapple heavy tiki type of drinks that you don't have to make it that. I think the Campari is what makes it a little bit interesting, even if it's not as easy to drink. And that's week 19. That is Jungle Bird. I think it's a very interesting exercise in using bitterness as a tool and trying to keep that in the mix while maintaining an appealing finished product. I really appreciate this drink, and next week we're gonna go a bit off the rails for our monthly end of the month closeout. But in the meantime, this is a good place to be. Until then, I'll see you all next week. Happy mixing.